Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Bars Closing for Friday, August 26th. I'll be your host, Tom Schneider, CMT of NinjaTrader. And before we get into all of the fun today, and there's a lot to talk about, let's just take care of a little bit of housekeeping before we start. So I do want to remind everybody that trading futures and options is not for everybody. It incurs some substantial risk. That's why we recommend you use risk capital. What is risk capital? It's money that you can afford to lose, doesn't keep you up at night, doesn't extend your retirement horizon. And that I also want to remind everybody that past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results, and that what we talk about today in this program contains neither trade recommendations nor financial advice, and therefore should not be interpreted as such. And we're doing this solely for educational purposes only. And with that, let's get right into the charts. We're trying a little bit of a different setup today on my monitor, so apologize for that stilted reading of the disclaimer. But thank you for persevering with me. Right now, I think, the talk of the day is obvious. We can see it on this chart. Big down day today, looking pretty red in most of the markets. Energy is always kind of an exception. It could go with the markets, it could go against the markets. Today, crude and gasoline showing a little bit of bullishness here, but most everything else down today, and down big, 3% on the almost 3% on the S&P 500, 3.5% on the micro Nasdaq, a little over 3 for the Russell, and the E-mini Dow looking a little bit stronger than everything, only down 2.6%. Wow, kind of a really interesting day here. Anticipation, a little bit of life with the positive economic reports at 8:30, and then of course 10 o'clock. I should say regular trading hours, market opens, pushes it back down to where we were to start the session way back last night, 6 o'clock, kind of trading around there. And then we just saw the market fall out of bed with, first of all, the Michigan's consumer sentiment number, and then followed by Bullard's comments. And did I say Bullard? I didn't mean Bullard. I meant Powell, Jerome Powell's comments. A lot of these Fed speakers were speaking earlier. They were speaking yesterday. Mester spoke this morning. Bullard spoke, I believe, yesterday. Harkin spoke today. A lot of speaking today, but I think it was Jerome Powell saying that, he's looking a little more hawkish than he thought. 75 basis points on the table for September, and the markets reacted accordingly. So it's just been a ride through the pivot points pretty much all day. We see the pivot here, 4180, just kind of cruise through there after Powell spoke. Support 1, cruise through there. S2, market came down and came back up, tried to test S2 repeatedly, wanted to come back. Buyers wanted to come in. They thought, maybe this run is over, but they failed. And now we're targeting S3. I mean, can you believe it? That's a 1, 2, 3, possibly 4 pivot march from the top of the day, the high of the day, R1, all the way down to S3. So right now, if you've gotten on the right side of that trade, good for you. I'm not sure I'd be wanting to find bottoms right now. You could have said, hey, that looked like a bottom there, a little bit lower. That was around the 4110, 4115 level. Oh, wow, look at this. We had some support here, 4098, 4100, nice psychological number. We haven't seen it. We've seen a little bit of a pause there at 4085. We continue down. So, I'm not thinking bulls here. Look at this. We have a green candle, but deceptive, right? Because we have lower highs and lower lows. Yeah, I don't know. We'll come back to that. And systematically, all the other markets are looking the same way, right? We have this big down move when Powell was speaking, and a little bit of resistance at S2, trying to get back up there, and now we're down on the micro Nasdaq's at 12, right around 12,700, a little bit north of there. Russell, same thing. We found a little bit, not even quite getting back to the S2 level, and we're a little bit closer to S3, so that might be more in play. We might be a little more bearish on the Russell. And then the E-mini Dow, same kind of thing here, trying to get down to the S3, although a little bit of a reprieve right now. So again, those can be deceiving, though. We've seen that before, one, two, three times in this journey downward. Who's with us? Let's say Robin, first to chime in. Robin, happy Friday. Agree. It's been a crazy day. And Jim and I were talking after the morning show that we didn't even mention this is a very special weekend in horse racing with the Travers. Travers is a special day at Saratoga. Now, Saratoga, if you've never been there, I like to think of it like the Fenway Park of horse racing. You're transported back in time when you go there, and that could be good, could be bad. I mean, first thing I remember going there are the big fans at the top of the stands trying to cool everybody down, of course, in the middle of August when they run. Not something that happens. But Travers this weekend, big deal in racing. Today they had some, they're racing right now, but I think tomorrow is the big card for Travers. So if you've never been to Saratoga, it's worth going out there just to see. It's one of those bucket list things if you're into horse racing. So who's here with us? We're going to do things a little bit out of order. We've already kind of done things out of order today. Roger Marley, new name. Welcome, Roger. Thanks for coming. And Bartlett, Tim Marco, Carlos, Paulie, Mr. Sunday School, Frank Williams, Hossein, Griffin's here. Great to see you, Griffin. Sean Weasel, I hope I'm saying that right. Sean, new name. Good to see you. Tony Lyons, John Jabinsky, Joseph Silos, Anise is here, Rod J, Ron Mellett, Paul M, Edward Bambico, R Rachel, Brian Ruley, Ankle Boo Boo, Lafta, Gallo P, M Rana. So a few new names. Hope you find what you're looking for and find some stuff you're not looking for, some good information. Feel free to drop in some questions, some comments, trade ideas, anything here. We have a great community that'll help you with that. If I don't get to it right away, I've got my crack team pushing the comments forward to me, and I try to get to all of them. Just want to remind everybody that we're trading today on a simulated account using real-time data on the NinjaTrader platform. And, Fridays, end of the week, end of the day, it's August, although it was such a big news day today. So it's really interesting. I just want to, keep in mind, there may or may not be some trade ideas to finish the day. We'll come back to the stock index futures because I think that's where the opportunity will be. But let's look at natural gas. Natural gas, something happened overnight. Something happened 21. So that's like 9 o'clock last night. Something pushed this market up and brought it up all the way up to R2. Now these R2, R1, S1, PP, these are all pivot levels that are determined from the previous day's trading. These don't change. So if I were to look at last night, let me bring it over. This is what the chart looked like. And now, of course, we can ignore the distribution because that hadn't happened yet. But this R1 level still was there. That pivot level still was there. That R2 level was there. So that's what this looked like going into the late evening here in New York. A lot of trading activity around R2. It found a new level. And it pretty much traded there all morning, right? All early morning, I should say, into the pre-market. Now, maybe the market gets knocked down a little bit on comments. Maybe that's coming out of Jackson Hole, things coming out of Europe. And then we saw this turnaround, nice little turnaround here around 8:30, 8:40. And that could have been related to what was happening in the US with the economic reports that came out. We'll talk about those in just a moment. And again, pushing the market up. And then could be related again to what Powell was saying, right? Because what he says might affect the economy, or is his reading of the economy. And certainly that will affect what's happening in natural gas. So we were trading around R2. We found a little bit of activity around R1, and now we're finding resistance up around, we traded all the way down to S1 very briefly, and we're trading right around the pivot, right around the point of control. We're just south of both of those. Again, not a lot of volume is going to happen in the end of the day, so I'm not interested in trading natural gas right now. Crude, a little bit different, not as extreme, pretty quiet trading range today, which is interesting in lieu of the fact that we talk about demand destruction, and it seems like there's factors or fundamentals that would normally rise the markets happening, but it's all being overshadowed maybe by what's happening in the overall economy, which is we want to pump the brakes a little bit on the economy to get rid of or to temper inflation, or tamp down the inflation. So really interesting day today, just because it was such a quiet day comparatively. Didn't even trade the range of yesterday. So I'm, again, not looking for anything in the last half hour or so of this live stream. Certainly the volume is coming off. Again, that shadow close, that former floor close around 230. Volume tends to taper off, and we do see a lot of times where we'll just trade in a very tight range going into the end of the day. Gasoline, a little bit more volatile, but trading somewhat similar to crude. Did trade down to S2, traded back up through the pivot, and now we're just hovering right above the 1 standard deviation band. The pivot, again, that volume just tapers off to non-existent almost. There is trading happening, but I want to see where there's activity. So we'll come back to the stock index futures as opportunities. Let's take a look at gold and copper next. Gold right here, kind of resembling what the market's doing. The stock index futures are doing a big bullish candle. I'm sorry, big bearish activity right here with the Michigan sentiment numbers, and then the market came back up. It was really interesting to see that happen. We saw that in the stock index futures, and then as Powell kept talking and saying what he was thinking, the market just came down. Now it did find a level, somewhere halfway between S2 and S3, and it hasn't been as bearish as the stock index futures. Stock index futures relatively, kept going, but it looks like, again, the gold market, it looks like volume has tapered off again due to the fact that we're, if we were following floor hours from long ago, we would be certainly closed in gold. But that's not true. Everything's electronic. We could still trade till 5 p.m. today. Here is Dr. Copper, and Dr. Copper, kind of looking the same as stock index futures. We had a rise up to and even past R2, and then right around that 10 o'clock hour, we saw that, or 10 o'clock bar, I should say, we saw that dip. Market comes back on initial comments by Powell, and then the market just kind of tanked as well. And this is, I believe, related to the economy, right? If the economy is slowing down, if we want to slow down the economy, then we don't need copper as much as we should, right? And so maybe there's not enough demand for copper, or that's the anticipation, trading down the pivot there. So with that, we've looked at a few charts. Let's take a quick 30-second break, and we'll be right back.
You deserve full market transparency. You deserve the flexibility to trade on your own schedule. You deserve access to professional futures trading tools. NinjaTrader, because you deserve more. Start trading futures at NinjaTrader.com. Capture the excitement and opportunity of crypto trading in a secure and highly regulated marketplace. Meet cryptocurrency futures. Go long, go short, you decide. Start trading futures at NinjaTrader.com.
And we're back. Let's see. We've got Rod J saying good morning, all from Queensland, Australia. Rod, thank you for joining us, and I hope you get something out of this. It's great discussion. My crack team is telling me there's some good discussions happening in the chat. I can't see that. I can't see the chat. I'm focused on the charts and focused on my camera and all this good stuff. So I might take a look at that after the show. It's a great community. We love to see the participation. Hossein, no element of the Dow is green. So what Hossein's talking about, the 30 stocks that comprise the Dow are all down. Not surprising in lieu of what's happening. It might be a great sell-off today based on the news coming out of Jackson Hole. Our Rachel says, where's the bottom here? So let me just jump back to the E-mini S&P. Looks like he's talking about 100-point move, and that's, looking at 4,200 right up here is about where we were, just north of there, and now we're below 4,100. So it's a pretty big move on the S&P, such a short time. Again, looking at these candles, I mentioned that you can't really say that the bottom's in. It could just be another pause along this ride down. S3 is, for me, is still a target. So what I'm going to do, we talked about breakouts earlier, and in the interest of time, we only have a little bit of time here, about another half hour before regular trading hours, and we're doing a big. Now, I'm going to change that. I'm going to just quickly change the micro, and so what I can do is type in MES, and I can get that future here. And so same concept applying, though, is I'm going to use this this area right here to put in a stop and say, okay, you know what? Let's do a 5 lot. Let's not just do a 1 lot. Let's do a 5 lot. And if we break out, I'm targeting S3. That's my target. We found out yesterday when we did the bars closing show that maybe not always a great idea to use a level as a target. Maybe it's just sometimes good to let the market run past that level. We don't know, but I'm looking at this, and let me change my number. I said a 5 lot, right? For some reason, it didn't take my 5 lot order initially, but I think if we can break these wicks here, let's see if we can continue that slide. Time to get long in here. So I'm going against what our Rachel is saying, and yeah, it could be a 100-point move. This is certainly a big volatility comparatively. We have a study called Average True Range. You can look at the ranges on each day, make an average of that, and I'm sure it would be spiking up today with today's range, this 100-point range. We're down 125 actually. So pretty big trading range. I'm going to go the other way from our Rachel. And again, makes a good point. Simply no other reason than emotion. So looking for a bounce back on Monday. So if you're brave enough to carry your position over, I don't know if that's what our Rachel is thinking about going long here. It sounds like, maybe bounce back on Monday, getting long here. You might want to, if you're thinking about carrying it over the weekend, I don't know. To me, I'm not that kind of trader. I like to just not have to worry about it over the weekend. But if our Rachel is correct, okay, if you feel that he's correct, then certainly you would carry it over. But I'm not giving any advice here. We're just exploring opportunities, exploring ideas. Griffin says, I'll stay flat over the weekend. Thanks. Yeah, that's my tendency too. No reason for a counter 10 trade consideration on lower timeframes next week till 40.15 and 39.60. So we just got filled on that short order. So now the question is, where do we want to protect ourselves? We're using the micros, and where do we want to take profits? So I'm looking at this. We just had a shift in the point of control, which is interesting. It's really not the point of control, rather, it's the value area. So we do a little more trading down here, a little more activity, pulls that down. So I'm going to say just above the point of control is where I'm going to put my stop. So I'm going to buy them back there. Oops, I got to do it this way. I'm going to change that to 5. And I could stagger them, but with a stop, I'd like to just keep them all, my entire position there. And the question is, where do we get out here? So, you've got this nice volume node here, right above where we are. Let me just pull in and see if there's, nope, we are at the lows. That's why. So there's nothing else down here. So I'm going to use my S3 as my target. And we're going to say, let's do 5. Let's do 5 here. Why not? We could stagger them, but in the very fact that we don't have a lot of time, we're gonna just keep them all together. Anthony says it might be one of those days that it declines to the end. Yes, and we just continue selling. And we talked about this with Larry Williams on Tuesday at Traders Workshop. Talked about volume being a mirror image almost, not always, but high volume at the beginning of the day and high volume at the end of the day. And let's try to use that to our advantage. How do we do that? Well, the way I look at it is we had a lot of volume, and a lot of volume is relative, right? But today, most of the volume came in the first 10 minutes. We had 65,000 contracts traded. We went down to 45, and it went up to 54, leading into the 10:30, 10:40. We had 60,000. So there was a lot of activity, about 200,000 contracts. It looks like even more, maybe, 220,000 contracts trading in the first 40 minutes of regular trading hours. So are we going to get that back? Are we going to see the opposite trades, right? As people take profits, I don't think we'll do as much volume there. It's a lot of volume we have to pick up for in the next 22 minutes, 23 minutes. But sometimes with that move, or that, I shouldn't say move, with that volume comes a big move. So I don't see any reason with all these lower lows, lower highs, that this trend will not continue. And so that was my thinking of, let's get in the breakout trend and let's see if we can hit S3. So we'll come back to the micro E-mini. I would say that, we're seeing the same things in the other stock index futures. Let's just take a look at some of the other markets. We took a look at the metals and the energies. Let's take a look at the euro. I know Jim was talking about that this morning, right? We were looking at the euro trade. Again, this idea of parity, we see a lot of trading around it. And I mark this. I'll mark it a little better so we can see this. If I just click on my trend line, I'm going to right click and go to properties. We'll just make it a different color because everything seems to be so blue. We need to make it stand out a little bit. So a good one might be something like a dark green, and we'll make it actually a little bit thicker. There we go. So there's parity. There's that parity where $1 equals €1. And looks like this morning we were trading well above it. We saw euro rise. Now, what happened? Again, responding to the news of Powell speaking, we saw this just get knocked down, and it's the talk of a stronger dollar, basically. Now, you might say this looks like a head and shoulders, and you could make a case for it. It's a lopsided shoulders, but I don't see a distinct neckline. This $1 or $1 for €1 parity line is just coincidental that it looks like it could be a nice neckline, but I don't see it so much. Those shoulders are a little lopsided. But if you did think, hey, this is a head and shoulders, that's where we would say, well, a break of this neckline indicates, the head and shoulders would indicate a target lower than the neckline. And what is that target? Well, generally that target is the height of the head, that middle section. So what you're looking at is you have buyers coming in, sellers knocking it down to this level, buyers saying, hey, no, we're not going to go farther than this. We're going to actually bring you up higher. And then the seller says, no, you know what? That's too much. We're going to bring you back. And they bring them all the way back down to parity. And then we saw a little bit of buyers pushing back, but the sellers have knocked it down. So it's an interesting struggle. It's an interesting pattern. And then what we would do is we would just basically measure this distance. So I'm just going to go from parity to the high, and the high is right here. And in the interest of just making this quick, I'm just going to move it and subtract that distance from the parity line. So it's this, again, it's subjective. This is a little bit hand waving or a little bit roughing. It's not, calculating. I'm not taking out my calculator or my adding machine, as Larry showed us on Tuesday, and calculating that distance. It's kind of eyeballing, but that's fine. We're talking about areas of resistance or support. And so this target, this pattern, I should say, indicates that, boy, if we break down, we could go all the way down to 99. So just maybe a little south of there. Again, not saying it will, but that's what patterns sometimes indicate. So could take a look at that and say that could happen. Now that's off of parity. As we say, parity to me is just, now that we've broken it, it's just another number. It's just another number. So that's the euro futures, euro dollar futures. Let's take a quick look at the British pound. Looking somewhat similar in how it behaved today. It was up, and then we had that turnaround, and just kind of one of these days resembling the stock index futures that have just, had different accelerations during the day, but slowly decaying, price decaying over time. S1 holding as resistance here, S2 holding as support for a lot of the afternoon from about noon up until about 240, 250. So, interesting times there, and then just slowly decreasing. Let's go back to our E-mini position. So nice little decision there. Can we get a little more? Now, this line right here, this is the lower value area. This will just move as we trade lower, if it trades lower. It's just the nature of how we calculate this. A nice distribution in the value area, but we're trading at the lows, so that's going to pull this down most likely. And we're thinking, hey, if this trend continues, maybe S3 is too conservative. Maybe S3 is something we will get. And so what you could do is you could say, you know what, I'm going to take this down a little bit. I'm going to get out of 3 here, and then I'm going to go down maybe a little bit lower to the VWAP band. And so I'm going to buy 2 more. And so my position right now is 5. It's a 5-lot position. And so I want to take 3 off here, and then maybe 2 a little bit more, 2 a little bit later. Because what I'm thinking is maybe this will accelerate with the volume that has to come in at the end of the day. We're about to hit also a 15-minute candle, right? In about a minute and a half. It's going to be 3:45 New York time. Another candle on a 15-minute chart. Again, you could use whatever minute timing on the charts you want. My experience dealing with traders, I've seen a lot. I've seen single-digit minute charts. I've seen 10-minute, 15-minute, any number of Fibonacci numbers, right? 21, 34, 55, 89, 134, et cetera, those I've seen on charts as number of minutes. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's what you're familiar with and what you get used to. Carlos says the VIX was navigating inside the range and testing the levels of the gap until Powell started talking. Now, I don't have a VIX chart, I don't think. Let me just quickly go over to my daily chart. And I believe that's my daily chart. I might have a VIX chart. I think we were looking at this earlier in the week, maybe last week. No, I was looking at the dollar index. No, I don't see my VIX chart, but interesting. Thanks for that, Carlos. I do also want to mention, we touched upon this in the morning show. We are going to be looking at some new technology here on the show for our playback, or our I shouldn't say playback, our broadcasting for our video. What's really has us excited is it's going to give us more options. I think it's going to be a cleaner interface. It's going to, I think, make the experience for you, the viewer, and the ability to participate with the show a lot better. So you'll you'll see more about that next week, but we're really excited to do that because it gives us a little more freedom to do these ideas that we've been talking about, that our group has been talking about, to make this experience a little better. And a lot of it is the interactivity. So excited to hear that. And, I know our group, Mark and Jason, have been working hard to get this off the ground. Jim and I are just, really waiting for this, see how we can push the boundaries with it. So we're excited about that. And we'll see more about it. We'll be able to talk more about it starting next Monday. So let's take a quick look. This is a daily chart. Let's go back to the intraday charts. And we're still seeing no reason to say we're at the bottom, right? We've got lower highs and lower lows and a red candle. And even if this did turn up a little bit, we had a bullish candle here, bullish candle here, bullish candle here. You can have bullish candles in a downturn, in a bear trend. You can have bear candles. You can have red candles in a bullish trend. So I'm not too concerned. It looks like it's going our way here. And we still have, another 13 minutes. You really see the volume accelerate in that last 10-minute candle and really towards the end of that 10-minute candle. So the fact that this market keeps accelerating and we're 13 minutes out, we may hit this S3 and hopefully, for our sake, for our position, hopefully it'll continue. Just want to remind everybody, we're trading on a simulated trading account using real-time data on the NinjaTrader platform. I love this platform. There's a lot you can do with it. The one thing that you can do with it is you can attach to the indicator. You can attach your order to the indicator. So this is a VWAP band that I'm looking at. It's the second standard deviation band that I'm looking at right here. I can attach the order there. I'm going to do it here as well. For some reason, it splits those orders. We're going to say okay. And so even if this band starts to dip, because that's what will happen when we move south, right? This VWAP band, as we trade below it, is just going to keep pulling it down, which means the standard deviations are going to be pulled down, which means that, we get a better price if we follow that band. So I'm going to use my S3 as a target, get out of 3 positions there. And there's another order behind this. So it's really, I think, two positions right here. So we'll see what happens as we go in there. Let's see some other things. What else were we talking about today? Well, I think, just a recap of the market, or the reports that came out. We had a international trade in goods and services. That's kind of like the balance of our ins and outs, our inflows, outflows in monetary terms with the global, marketplace. And so what's interesting about that is our balance is negative, but it's less negative than anticipated, which is good. That means there's more, comparatively, there's more outflowing than inflowing. So that's good for our economy. That was good news. That came out at 8:30. And at 8:30, the markets were lifted, right? This is the 8:30-ish bar right here. So the one that says 8:40 is actually started at 8:30 when these numbers came out. And you see it just pushed the market up. Buyers came in. It's, wow, this is great news. The balance is more down than less negative than it was before. That's good. And less negative than it was anticipated to be. That's even better. Personal income increased, right? So wages, you think about wages, what we're making, it increased on a month-to-month basis. Now, you've got to temper that, right? Because did inflation increase more than personal income did? Well, if we look at what they were saying with the inflation numbers, the last time that report came out, they were saying no inflation. Well, it was a month-to-month number in July, that's 0. So if inflation didn't increase and wages increased, that means wages were good. We're getting paid more. So it's good from a jobs or an income front. And that was part of also that report that came out at 8:30. from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So another, I think, positive thing for the economy. Retail inventories, declined. Wholesale inventories declined, and not. I think that's good. I think that kind of shows that the supply chain crisis that we were hearing about earlier in the year, maybe it's being slightly alleviated. That would be a good thing for the economy. So some positive economic news today push the market up, as what we would expect in normal times. But that really positive number on the consumer sentiment front at 10 a.m. was a little too positive, maybe, right? You see this big wick at the 10 o'clock hour. That happened almost right away. That happened at the beginning of that candle. So, having that economic news be a little too rosy brought the market down. And I think President Powell, some of his words brought it back up. But then, I think the more he spoke and the more he said, it just seemed like, oh, maybe this economy still isn't under control. And so there might be a little bit of pain going forward. So and we saw it throughout, most of the markets, right? We saw it in the stock index futures, we saw it in the metals, we saw it in the currencies, and there was some response in natural gas. So almost all the markets were kind of, saddled with this information, and we see the results right now. We see this trend keeps on continuing to go down. Lower highs and lower lows. That's a trend. So we'll see if we can get 3. Now let me do this. Yeah. So I just want to make sure that we are still having both orders right behind each other, and it's attached to the VWAP band. So as we make a new bar, this VWAP band might move a little bit, hopefully lower, because we're trading lower. I would expect it to. And if we get that target, it's just a little bit more that we get in that trade. Wow. So 7 minutes in, we really might, I don't think we'll see this volume accelerate just yet. But hopefully we'll see that soon. Let's take a look over at micro Nasdaq, see what's happening there. Something similar, trying to get to S3. Lower highs, lower lows. We've got a trend, a little doji happening now. Again, 7 minutes left. I'm not jumping in right now, but Russell, somewhat similar. Actually did get to S3. S3 could be holding right now. Although I would suspect that if we see continuation in the E-mini and the S&P and the E-mini Nas and the micro Nasdaq, we might see that continuation through S3 on the Russell. Russell seems to be a little bit weaker than everything else today. So if those two, or maybe even the E-mini Dow, although that looks like it's hitting its S3 now as well. So, we might see continuation past S3 in these markets if this trend continues in all 4 of the stock indices. We're just so close to that target that we have at S3. Let me just move something over here. So I've got targeted 4062. No, I'm sorry. Hard to see where this S3 is. So let's do this. 4060.75. I think I'm right under it, maybe 4060.50. And we'll see if we hit that. We're pretty close. We're just a couple handles off. Let's see. Anything happening in the chat? If you have questions, if you have comments, if you have trade ideas, throw them in the chat. I'd be happy to take a look. If there's a chart you want to look at, futures chart, we could certainly take a look. We'll take a look at bonds right now. Bonds actually not going in the same direction. Bonds are negative, but not quite as negative as all the other markets. In fact, it looks like it's almost the opposite, which is kind of what we would expect. And just so you know, we did get a fill on our micro E-mini chart. So we did cross that S3 threshold, and now we're in extra pivot activity. Extra meaning outside pivot activity. And we've got, let's see, 21,000 contracts versus 65. We've got a long way to go, but it's 5 minutes. A lot can happen in 5 minutes in the futures market. We'll see how much volume comes in. Let's get back to bonds though. So bonds looking a little bit opposite of what the stock market did today, and kind of what we would expect, right? Bonds came in and market was knocked down. Again, not a really big trading day compared to yesterday. We're trading within yesterday's trading range. Not necessarily the prices, but certainly within the absolute range. We're trading outside of the high yesterday. We did trade it at least. We're not quite there yet right now. We've come back down off of it. But we're certainly not as volatile as yesterday. How do I know that? Well, we're confined between S1 and R1, which is defined as yesterday's trading range. That's low to high of yesterday's trading range. But what I want to do is I want to see what this retracement could tell us. So I'm going to use this low right here, not this low. This is kind of where we saw a trend, right here, kind of the same thing. We got the high there. So I'm going to use those lows and this high to see how far do we retrace off the high. And we found a little bit of happiness right around that 38% level right here. 38% level was acting as support for a while. So we retraced down past it. We retraced down to 50%. We came back up to 38%. And that looks like where the neighborhood that we're staying in right now. So interesting there. But kind of an inverse day on bonds from the stock index futures. Although this reversal, it didn't continue to increase like the stock index futures continued to decrease. We did find some retracement back to 38. So a little bit disconnected, but I'm not worried about that. Again, with 2 minutes and 50 seconds into left in the trading day, I'm not worried about that. Now, interesting thing here, buyers coming in and said, hey, maybe S3 is our support level. Let's push this back up. But again, lower highs, lower lows. You got to focus also on the extremes, not just the body of the candle. And so there's, right here, I'm still thinking we're in a downtrend. We're in a downtrend. These buyers have been trying to bring this up every candle. And yes, sometimes they've advanced, but the overall trend still is bearish. And let's see if we can't get those last two units off. I'm going to change this in the off chance, the very outside off chance that market gets pushed up there. I'm going to change my position because I took 3 off. So my stop doesn't have to be 5. It should reflect my position, which is 2 units. And I could even bring that down a little bit now that, we know where we got 3 off the table. So this is one where I might do this, is bring it back a little bit down further. Let me bring it down here and just tighten it up a bit because we've only got, less than 2 minutes. But look at the volume coming in strong now, right? 36,000 versus 65. And we've got a full minute and a half. I think we'll exceed this volume by quite a bit. Maybe that'll push the market down. Maybe the market will just stay sideways. We've seen that where there's a lot of volume and it just kind of hangs out there at the same price, doesn't move either way. It's fine. We've got a whole nother hour, clean up this trade, let it run. That's fine. Griffin says, if I have a long-term trade, couple weeks to a couple months, I can only look at it once or twice a week. More than that, and I start thinking, and that's a very good point. We're full of emotions. There's a lot of information coming. And so part of the discipline of trading is figuring out, what your bias is, what you think you've seen before, and how the market resembles that. And you see a setup, we call them trade setups, and say, well, based on this, I want to get in here and get out here. And here's my stop. And then set it and forget it, assuming everything's pretty normal. But that's why you have stops, right? You have a protective stop and things don't go your way. So what Griffin is saying is, if you start looking at it too much, start looking at it and kind of, the more you look at it, the more time you give yourself to doubt your original thinking. And as we know, taking tests, they always say, go with your first instinct, if you're not 100% sure, go with your first instinct. And we've got a new bar. It's end of regular trading hours, and we'll see if this just continues to go. But, trust your gut, trust your instincts, trust your discipline even more, right? So that's what I think Griffin is saying is, stick with the plan to some extent. I totally agree with that. Lessons learned. I think lessons learned. This was one of those days we're coming in at, 315, 320, seeing the downtrend and wanting to participate. We used the breakout theory. We didn't see the retracement. And, part of it to me was, boy, there isn't a lot of news going into the end of the day saying, oh, but this, let's offset what Powell said. I didn't hear a lot of that. And looking at the chart, we saw a lot of lower highs and lower lows consecutive. And that's pretty consistent. Doesn't have to be a huge move. It could be a lot of little cuts, right? Then death by one cut, death by a little bit of, death by 100 cuts, or whatever that phrase is. So you see a lot of little candles moving. That adds up. Now when we were looking at the trade, I think we were down 125. Now we're down 142, roughly there. We're at 14 handles in this trade. We're trying to get to, a little bit more, right? And so we'll see if that happens. Again, this looks pretty bullish from the buyer's point of view. Here's this long wick. Buyers are pushing this back up, but I still see lower high and lower low. So nothing really contradicting, my ideas about the trend. So, kind of let's look at the big picture. Don't let the really little minutia fool you. Let's look at the trend. Let's let it run. We did yesterday. We had the opposite. We were long. We capped ourselves at a level, and it kept going. Today we took, with the micros, we took a little bit off. We're going to see if we can keep going to that next target level. Okay, so Friday afternoon, almost there. I hope everybody's going to have a great weekend. I went outside between shows. They do let me outside, and felt like walking into an oven. So apparently we decided to have another heat wave or something out where I am. Maybe it's just what I'm wearing, but I'm in shorts. I've got my sleeves rolled up. It still felt like an oven. So, we'll try to get outside. No plans really. Actually, we've got some family plans on Sunday. Get out of town and do a quick drive upstate a little bit and celebrate a 50th wedding anniversary. So that'll be fun. And then back at it on Monday. So, hopefully you all can take a break too, take your minds off the markets. If you're looking at the markets and you're planning for next week, more power to you. I hope, I hope you get enjoyment out of that, because it can be fulfilling. It can be, I hate to say the word fun, but, it can be fun looking and seeing, trying to decipher what is the market? What are all the factors in the market, and how can I use them to make better trades, to make better decisions? So, interesting there. Now, I because of my new setup, I'm not going to pull up any kind of website, but I will talk about some. So if Mission Control, you might drop in the link to the CME economic release calendar. And again, we look at that because we can. We talked about it briefly this morning. Brainerd, Federal Reserve Vice Chairman Brainerd has a speech Monday morning at 8 a.m. So, pow, right out of the gate, we're going to get some Fed speak. That's Monday morning. And then we've got another manufacturing survey from Dallas this time. I expect good numbers out of that. And by good, I mean maybe increasing numbers, which would be good for the economy. We have the usual export inspections for grains. Got some auctions, 6-month and 3-month bill auctions. We've got crop progress. So if you're trading grains, might want to pay attention to those. And then Japan has unemployment rate Monday evening. So if you're done with dinner, you want to come back to your NinjaTrader platform, take a look at the Japanese yen future, you can do that. Just be aware that they have unemployment numbers too. They're coming out Monday night. Tuesday, we've got some things happening in Europe and some reports coming out of Europe and Great Britain on Tuesday morning. We also have another speech. This time, Barkin, who's the Richmond Fed president, he's going to speak again at 8 a.m. So, I think this is Jackson Hole is where they can all the Fed presidents can meet and talk to other central bankers, but then I'm sure they have a weekend. This weekend they might have a meeting tomorrow, or maybe it's the whole, Saturday and Sunday where they get in a room and they start talking about the message and what they're going to message us, the consumers, and us, the traders, and us, the American public, and get on board with it with less than, I believe it's less than 4 weeks, right? Is it? Yes, it's less than 4 weeks to the next meeting. So looks like that's happening next week, early morning. The red book at 8:55. We have home price, Case-Shiller home price index, 9 a.m. Tuesday. FHFA house price index. So also at 9 a.m. on Tuesday. So, and then JOLTS job openings report at 10 a.m. on Tuesday. Consumer confidence, not to be confused with consumer sentiment. It's a different survey that comes out at 10 a.m. on Tuesday. So quite a few things happening on Tuesday. Also got the New York Fed president speaking, John Williams, not the composer, but the New York Fed president speaking on Tuesday at 11 a.m. So that's something to look forward to. And again, at that point, third speaker that we know of, maybe some of these other speakers go on, MSNBC or Bloomberg or some local media, Reuters, and they talk, and that gets reported too. So we know 3 presidents speaking for sure, but there might be more coming out of there. And then France has a bunch of reports coming out Wednesday morning, Germany, Europe, Italy. So might see some activity in the currency futures and possibly in stock index futures, the E-mini S&P in the European hours. We've got mortgage applications 7 a.m. Wednesday. We've got bank reserve settlement at 8 a.m. Cleveland, Fed President Loretta Mester is speaking 8 a.m. So it looks like they have a docket filled for next week. ADP employment report at 8:15 Wednesday. And then Chicago PMI 9:45. State Street investor confidence at 10. And then the regular EIA petroleum report on Wednesday. And then Atlanta Federal Reserve President Bostic will speak at 6:30. So they're kind of covering all bases like we try to do. We have a morning show and an evening show. They're doing the same thing with different presidents, Fed presidents. So a lot of activity, and that's just Wednesday. And that's the end of the month. I don't have September up here, but a lot happening in the first half of the week next week. And we're still in this trade. We're still short micro E-mini two contracts. So we'll see if we can get there. I don't know. Seems like things have slowed down. And notice that the volume didn't really come in like I expected it to. It's interesting. Usually we see equal and opposite or very close. A lot of volume happened in the first 40 minutes of the regular trading hours. And I would argue more than normal volume happened at the 9:30 hour. It looks like this is really interesting that it's not coming back on the other side. So we'll see what happens there. See if we can get that. Want to check over here. Paul M says, have a great weekend. Go Jays, go. All right, I think we talked about the Blue Jays before. Yeah, no, great. Fun place to see a game right downtown, Rogers Center. right by the big, I forget what they call it. I've been there so many times. It's the big spire in the middle. Really great place to see a game. Our Rachel says, Powell didn't really say anything we weren't perfectly aware of. In my view, massive overreaction, but we are traders and the market cracked downward and we were there to go where it leads. And Jim threw in a note saying, yeah, but he used the word pain. So I would agree. And I think, he didn't really say anything that hasn't been said by different Fed presidents before. Although I think what is important is we heard some Fed presidents backing away from a 75 basis point hike in September and leaning toward a 50. And now Powell comes out and he's leaning towards 75 basis point. I've heard arguments for 100 in September. I think Bobby was talking about that. Now, Bobby was saying that probably won't happen, but it's seems like it's dovish, hawkish, and really hawkish, and we're landing on the hawkish. Well, that's an indication that maybe inflation isn't as under control as we'd like to think it is. So that could be the reaction today. But again, it seemed like a lot of presidents, and a lot, right? There are how many of them? 12, 13, something, maybe 12 in a chair. But it seemed like more than usual were saying, yeah, let's back down to 50. Yeah, I don't think we're going to go much more than 375, 4 and a quarter by the end of the year. It just seemed very, not wishy-washy, but very mild. And Powell seems to say, no, you know what, we're going to do 75 basis points. They all say we're going to do what it takes, right? Of course, that should be a given. They're there for a reason. And we think we know the reasons, right? 2 mandates, as Bobby said. But, the fact that Powell said 75 basis points is what he's leaning toward, that there could be pain. Maybe it isn't the soft landing that the reports from earlier in the day indicated. So we'll see. I mean, hopefully if you were participating today in the markets, you got on the right side. And, this is a day where it just, what we talked about on Tuesday with Larry and what we talked about on Wednesday with Bobby, Jim talked with Bobby, it kind of was, I won't say perfect, nothing's perfect, but it was an exemplary day. Let this trend run, let this market run, let the time be your friend, right? This was not a very cyclical market or range bound market, right? This market had a trend and it had a direction and it went there. Hopefully you were able to capitalize on that and you come back Monday or Sunday night, if you want to trade on Sunday, come back and do it another day. That's what we're here for. That's what we're hoping you do, for sure. CN Tower, of course, Paul, thank you. Boy, I just had a little blank. That's a big tower in Toronto. In fact, I think I was telling Jim and Jason once that I was in town for business, as I would get to Toronto. Oh boy, it seemed like every 4 to 6 weeks, and it was great. I loved going up there and was going out to see the Yankees play the Blue Jays. And I forgot something up in my room. Maybe it was my key card or something. I don't know. And I get in the elevator. I'm with 3 couples who are in their, I would say, 70s. They were retirees. They were from Switzerland and they didn't speak much English, which is fine. Cosmopolitan city, right? Toronto, big city. And then there was one other gentleman and the elevator got stuck for an hour. And it was the summer and there was no air conditioning on this. And I was the designated person to communicate with the front desk or whoever it was through the speaker, which of course was 6 inches off the floor. And in a crowded elevator, I didn't really want to bend down and keep talking, but we got through it. I missed probably 3 innings. I didn't have tickets, so I didn't go. But, by the time I got out of there, missed 3 innings, I said, forget it, I'll go another time. But I don't know why I brought that up, but I just, of all the times that I've been to the ballpark, that's the one I remember because I didn't get to see the Yankees. And not that they're my favorite team, they're my daughter's favorite team. But it is, a treat to see other teams, not your favorite teams, play. I just really like watching teams that are not my favorite because you get to enjoy the baseball aspect of it a little more, I think. Anyway, I digress. I want to thank everybody at Mission Control for your help today. Wouldn't be able to do it without you. So thank you so much. And thank you, the viewer, for coming and spending time with us. We really appreciate it. If you can, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, follow us on Twitter. Just go to Twitter, search NinjaTrader and follow us there. We do send out some information along those lines. We'll be doing more of that, especially with the new technology. I imagine we'll be doing more of that as well. So just want to say, everybody, have a great weekend. Enjoy the weekend. Take some time off and enjoy it. It's really, great weekend. Hopefully where you are is here. We're going to enjoy it. And then we'll be back at this Monday morning with the opening range at 9:15. So again, thanks so much and have a great weekend.